Man. My dear GBC disciples, please accept my blessings. Over the past 10 years, I have given the framework, and now we have become more than the British Empire. Even the British Empire was not as expansive as we. Why is Prabhupada saying that? Anybody know? It's because the British administration in India was only 6,000 men. 6,000 men, and they administered everything. Railroads, governments, DM, CM, only 6,000 men. So by this time in India, we had over 10,000 men. So therefore, Prabhupada said, more than the British Empire, yes. We have 5,000 in America alone. They had only a portion of the world, and we have not completed expanding. We must expand more and more unlimitedly. But I must now remind you that I have to complete the translation of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This is the greatest contribution. Our books have given us a respectable position. People have no faith in this church or temple worship. Those days are gone. Of course, we have to maintain the temples as it is necessary to keep our spirits high. Simple intellectualism will not do. There must be practical purification. So I request you to relieve me of management responsibilities more and more, so that I can complete the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam translation. If I am always having to manage, then I cannot do my work in the books. It is document. I have to choose each word very soberly. And if I have to think of management, then I cannot do this. I cannot be like these rascals who present something mental concoction to cheat the public. So this task will not be finished without the cooperation of my appointed assistants, the GBC, temple presidents, and sannyasis. I have chosen my best men to be GBC, and I do not want that the GBC should be disrespectful to the temple presidents. You can naturally consult me, but if the basic principle is weak, how will things go on? So please assist me in the management so that I can be free to finish the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which will be our lasting contribution to the world. Srila Prabhupada ki. Prabhupada's amazing. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the second canto, 9th chapter, text 22, chapter titled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. Manishitanubhavoyam. Manishitanubhavoyam. Mama lokavalokanam. Mama lokavalokanam. Yad upashrutya Yad upashrutya Jakarta paramang tapaha. Jakarta paramang tapaha. Please chant. Manishitanubhavoyam. Mama loka valokanam. Yadupasrutirasi. Jakarta paramang tapaha. Manishitanubhavoyam. Mama loka valokanam. Radupasrutirahasi. Jakarta paramang tapaha. You can whisper it. Manishitanubhavoyam. Mama loka valokanam. Yad upasrutirahasi. Jakarta paramang tapaha. Ladies? It's 22, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 22. No problem. Take your time. We can even have Braj whisper. Manishchitanubhavoyam mama lokavalokanam yad upasrutirahasi Jakarta paramantapa. Anyone else? Manishita, ingenuity, anubhava, perception. I am this, mama, my, loka, abode, avalokanam, seeing by actual experience. Yet, because, upashrutya, hearing, rasi, in great pleasure, in great penance. Jakarta, having performed, paramam, highest, tapak, penance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes. And this has been possible because of your submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to my order. Purport. The highest perfectional stage of life is to know the Lord by actual perception, by the grace of the Lord. This can be attained by everyone who is willing to discharge the act of devotional service to the Lord as enjoined in the revealed scriptures that are standard and accepted by the bona fide acharyas, spiritual masters. For example, the Bhagavad Gita is the approved Vedic literature accepted by all the great acharyas, such as Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya, Vishwanath, Baladev, Siddhanta Saraswati, and many others. In that Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, asks that one always be mindful of Him, always be His devotee, always worship Him only, and always bow down before the Lord. And by doing so, one is sure to go back home, back to Godhead, without any doubt. In other places, also the same order is there, that one give up all other engagements and fully surrender unto the Lord without hesitation. And the Lord will give such a devotee all protection. These are the secrets of attaining the highest perfectional stage. Lord Brahma exactly followed these principles without any superiority complex, and thus he attained the highest perfectional stage of experiencing the abode of the Lord and the Lord Himself with all His paraphernalia. Impersonal realization of the effulgence of the Lord's body is not the highest perfectional stage, nor is the stage of Paramatma realization. The word Manishita is significant. Everyone is falsely or factually proud of his so-called learning. But the Lord says that the highest perfectional stage of learning is to know Him and His abode, devoid of all illusion. Om Jnana Tamrandasya Garanjana Salakaya Chakshurmala Tamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankarte Gurum Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Translation again. The highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abodes, and this has been possible because of your submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to my order. Very simple, straightforward, direct. As we just read in the Lilamrita, Prabhupada would meditate on each and every word in these Bhaktivedanta purports, because he knew that this was a document. Document means that for all time, not just simply some, it's like we occasionally, not very often, people don't write letters much. Now they use computers, but even these interpersonal exchanges are very rarely preserved for any length of time. For Prabhupada opined that these books will be the law books for mankind for 10,000 years. 10,000 years. Just to put that into perspective, we're how many years now as a republic? 1776 was the bicentennial. And that was also the first year of Rath Yatra in New York City. Prabhupada spoke about that from the Vyasa-san on the stage with Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. So hardly, not even 250 years. But these books will be the law books for 10,000 years. And we see what importance the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, these things are considered to be sacred. Why? Because they delineate inalienable rights given by the Creator. So even the common man knows that the laws of God, dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, that man-made laws are nothing, that the real laws are the laws of God. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. And the bona fide teacher, the Acharya, he is the representative of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, he is empowered. Only one who is empowered can preach the message of Godhead. We're reading that in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is constantly, continuously emphasized. One must be authorized. Otherwise, these writings of such persons are not at all valuable. Prabhupada compared the newspaper as waste paper. What happens? You read the newspaper once and then it is discarded. Even the karmis have they understand that the newspaper is simply used for wrapping up some garbage thing. And then that is its only use. So this is, so we have to respect Srila Prabhupada's efforts. How much time? We were reading this morning in that letter that Prabhupada is giving 3 tons of blood to make one devotee. 3 tons of blood. How much effort he put into nurturing this movement. And so it behooves us to take it seriously, not just another institution. And what Prabhupada gave this realization to Guru Kripa Prabhu, at that time Guru Kripa Maharaj, that I am ISKCON. Why did he say that? Maharaj was complaining to Srila Prabhupada that I don't like my godbrothers. And I don't like ISKCON. And Prabhupada said, you don't like ISKCON? I said, I am ISKCON. He compared ISKCON to his body. And then Maharaj could understand the importance that this is not just another institution formed by some declaration and registration. No. This is a spiritual organization. Just like the holy name has descended in Kali Yuga. What's that verse? Kali Kali Namarupa. So in Kali Yuga, the holy name is descended as an incarnation of the Lord. That's why it is the Yuga Dharma. It is not just some mantra for personal realization that one receives and for some personal benefit. And I was listening to the lecture this morning, and Prabhupada was criticizing so many movements are there. This transcendental that, this meditation that. They're, for all intents and purposes, they have no redeeming. Redeeming means good for all time, just like we have the definition of auspicious. What is the definition of auspicious? Braj, what's the definition of auspicious? To everyone, for all time, under all circumstances. That's auspicious. Auspicious is not a moment-by-moment thing, that it's auspicious one moment and inauspicious the next. Auspicious means for all time, for all persons, under all circumstances. That's auspicious. So we have to understand these things carefully. You know, not just to use these words without definition for trying to make some impression on the general population. No, we have to, why is Prabhupada mentioning here, Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Itam Uttamam Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartamavyam. This knowledge is a king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and joyfully performed. This is everything in a nutshell. Of course, then he also says, one who is constantly devoted to me and worships me with love, constantly devoted and worships me with love. I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. So all these verses are there just for our edification. The common man will not understand these immediately. You can tell that verse to someone on the street. He's not going to appreciate much in that regard. If you say that this is the king of knowledge, he will say, why? Why is this the king of knowledge? No, I know something better. He doesn't, but he'll say that because he has a poor fund of knowledge. He doesn't know what knowledge is. He doesn't know that the definition of knowledge is to understand the difference between spirit and matter. Where does Prabhupada define that? 10th chapter Bhagavad Gita, purport verses 4 and 5. Everything is there. Definition of intelligence. What is the definition of intelligence? To understand things in their proper perspective. To understand things in their proper. So someone may criticize something, but do they have the complete picture? Right? So without understanding, without the complete perspective, how can a person make any declaration or opinion? He can make an opinion. Opinion has no value. My opinion, his opinion, their opinion, her opinion. Opinion is nothing. Everyone has an opinion. My godbrother Urjasvat used to say two words. He said, opinions are like elbows. Everybody has two. Of course, on the street you say it a little differently. But to be polite, that's the phrase. He would say the same thing about excuses. Everybody has two. Everybody has an excuse. Everybody has an opinion. But not everybody has knowledge. The difference between spirit and matter. That is knowledge. And so therefore, Krishna summarizes everything in the second chapter. Just so that you have some basis for further appreciation and gradual understanding. First point Prabhupada makes, you are not this body. You are not this body, you are not this mind. Because without that distinction, one will be confused. How will he understand when his intelligence is speaking? Sarvasya chaham hridisani vishto matok smriti aganam apavanam cha. Krishna is in heart. He wants to give you this realization. He wants to. I am seated in the heart of every living entity. And from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So we have to approach the Supreme Lord if we at all want to have a higher understanding of the ultimate goal of life. Not for some intermediate goal. I want wealth, nadanam, najanam, nasundarim, kavita, bhajagadisha, kamaya. These are all useless things. The devotee, in the following in those footsteps of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Chana avatar, his hidden avatar, says, I don't want wealth. Nadanam, najanam. I don't want, anything, this worldly position. And I don't want beautiful women. This is even third on the list. Right? I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. But that level of knowledge doesn't come typically outside of the association of devotees. Even if one is practicing outside, without the associated devotees, his advancement is very slow. Very slow. It's just like when you're in water and you're having a difficult time, you tread water just to keep your head above her. So living outside of the devotee's devotional atmosphere and trying to execute devotional service. Because what is devotional service, ultimately? Chris says, bowing down before me. Yes, we can bow down anywhere, anyone's house. But what is it? Iha yasya hare dāsa kamana manasagara nikla shafiya vastastu. We have to know from the Hari Bhakti Vilas what is devotion. Therefore, there's pancharatric. There's worship. The temple is not simply just another place. That the temple is not different from some other place. No, people make this rationalization for whatever reason. Not necessary to get into it. But Prabhupada openly declared, yes, you don't have to live in the temple. You don't. This is his common refrain. At the same time, what was his emphasis? His emphasis was to build temples for the devotees, to install Radha-Krishna deities, for everyone to become trained, for everyone to become fixed. This is the key. It is not that we're doing this just because we have nothing else to do, because we can't function in the material world. No, anyone can function in the material world. We could see it, but not everyone can function in the temple. So that's how you understand the difference. Someone say, no, I don't have to be in the temple. Oh, why? If you're a grahastha, that's one thing. Prabhupada expected you to be outside, independent. But if you're not a grahastha, then there is no excuse. So what is that perfectional stage often discussed? Difficult to define, right? The perfectional stage is to realize the Supreme Lord's abode. But here in the temple, we're actually living in the Supreme Lord's abode. Prabhupada said the temples are Vaikuntha. How could he make such a statement like that? Is Prabhupada somehow just trying to encourage those persons who could not function outside a temple? Why would he say that? The temple is Vaikuntha. Is that for the less intelligent? Some people think that. No, it's because the temple is Vaikuntha. Why? It's because wherever the Supreme Lord is, that is Vaikuntha. It's not that it has to be uncovered in my heart. My heart is completely dark and filled with dirty things. Krishna is there, certainly, no doubt. But unless the heart is properly cleansed, Chaita Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Right? We chant this every day. We also chant Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Sringara Tanmandira Marjanata. Why? Because these two things are necessary. One has to cleanse the heart. And he cleanses the heart by cleansing the temple, by serving the deity in his abode. This is Krishna's house. This is Vaikuntha. The more we realize it, the more we benefit. The less we realize, yes, then maybe I don't. If I treat the building just like any other building, there's so many buildings. How many millions of buildings there are in New York City? What is the difference between this one, that one? Who can imagine that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we know that Radha Krishna, the deities here since 1968, first Radha Krishna deities established in America, in the West, basically. Maybe there were others, but not brought by the pure devotee. So since that time, continuously worshipped, continuously. There is no other situation in America and in any place outside of India, basically, that has that legacy. And just see how many devotees, nice devotees, have come through the door of Radha Krishna, Radha Govinda Mandir, and gone on to spread this movement all over the world. And anyone can take advantage of this situation. Anyone who is sincere, who serves Radha Govinda and Radha Krishna very nicely, he will become empowered. There's no doubt. This is not my opinion. And Prabhupada has factually told us, that we gain our spiritual strength by executing the process of devotional service under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master. Does anyone have doubt that this is the guidance? We can have some other opinion, but Prabhupada's opinion that under his guidance means serving the Supreme Lord in his temple, going out, distributing books, hosting Sunday feasts or other prasadam distribution. So we should be very firmly convinced about this. In our preaching, sometimes we make concessionary statements according to time and circumstances. But in our hearts, we have to be convinced. This is key. There is no room for adulteration. There's absolutely no room. One has to be very careful about that. We see it constantly all around. Someone wants to change this, someone wants to change this. Prabhupada said, this is your material disease, constantly changing this or that. No. So this is an amazing verse in the sense that Prabhupada reiterates the highest perfectional stage of life is to know the Lord by actual perception. The highest perfectional stage. And he gets that. And funny how he uses this perfectional stage, actual perception. It's very difficult in one sense, but it is built into the process if one is under the shelter of the bona fide spiritual master. One has to be free from doubt in this regard in order to be effective as an instrument in Lord Chaitanya's mission. And we see that sometimes, due to weakness of heart or other things, people will leave after having stayed for some time. And because Maya is very strong. Prabhupada said, don't think that it will be easy. He said, don't think that will be easy. And that's because, there's those nice lectures in Vrindavan, Prabhupada relating the history of Ajamil, how he was a learned Brahmin. He was a learned Brahmin, practicing. But yet, he was bewildered by seeing the low-class Sudra and Sudrani embracing. He was bewildered. Because it's very difficult to remain fixed, to control the senses. But if one was situated properly under the shelter, what did Prabhupada say to, he gave that, who was that letter to? Himavati. Himavati was our godbrother's wife before taking sannyas, Hansarupa Prabhu. Himavati said, there's no power on earth to make you fall down if you chant your 16 rounds. No power on earth. There's a very, he emphasized very carefully. Otherwise, Maya has so many weapons, and if you've not properly protected yourself, then these weapons can pierce you from any direction. From any direction. So, do we have any doubts? No. Do we have any questions? Yes.
I mean, you know the history pretty well. So would you say that most of the time when you hear about big leaders having big mess-ups or devotees leaving, falling away, one of the first things that happens is they stop chanting the rounds, like well before these...
Before that. Chandrasekhar Maharaj put it very nicely. If anyone gets a chance to listen to his class from a couple of days ago, Wednesday, you lose your taste. Due to offenses, you lose your taste for chanting. And even by not chanting, sometime, there's that two analogies, that the double-sided analogy. Sometimes when we're preaching, to give someone an understanding about karma and how that when one begins to chant, it's like unplugging the fan. When you unplug the fan, it still continues to spin for some time. But it's no longer powered, so that means it will stop. So you'll still continue to experience some reaction, but all those reactions will be minimized. And any other reactions are simply Krishna's arrangement to instruct you through one of his various agents. There's how many agents there are. There's the Adi-Bhautik, Adi-Daivik, Adi-Atmic. These are all agents of the Supreme Lord. And any one of them can give us valuable instruction, including Maya. So in the same way, if a person stops for chanting his rounds, the effect will not be immediate. Matter of fact, he'll think, I don't have to chant all my rounds. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But that's Maya. She's giving you some false understanding in order to win you over. It's like propaganda. She's telling you in the back of your mind, no, it's okay. You're not feeling good, you're not this, you're not that. Even Prabhupada said, just for clarification, he said first health, then japa. So if someone is very, very sick, obviously, first thing is get healthy. But it is not a permanent excuse. You can't just declare yourself that, it's a pandemic. I don't have to chant during the pandemic. No, you cannot say that. Oh, you can. But that means Maya has caught you very carefully with her ingenuity. It's like here. It's not that only we have ingenuity, no. Krishna is smarter than everyone. You cannot cheat Krishna. So you have to be careful. Yes, you will think it's okay, but then all of a sudden, things will start crashing down. And this is what happens. People, in my former life as an investigator, you see how people start off small. They steal a little something to see first will anybody notice. And when no one notices, they steal a little more. They think, it's okay, no one's going to catch me. But inevitably, even if they're not caught by the so-called material authorities, that mentality, that attitude is documented. At the time of death, everything will be played back for you in the court of Yamaraj. They have a very sophisticated system. Chitragupta knows every detail of your life, good and bad. And he doesn't hesitate to bring it forth and then give you your judgment. So yes, we may think foolishly that, no, nobody has caught me. Nobody sees that I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that. We've seen it many times. All of a sudden, someone starts to play around with the four regulative principles. What does it say in the Harinam Chintamani? It's very clear, actually. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that. What is the mentality? He thinks that, no, I am okay. Everyone else is wrong. That's exactly it. And that is the definition of aparad. The distinction between weakness of heart and offense, aparad, is that weakness of heart is momentary and temporary. And he recovers and he thinks, I will never do that again. He's remorseful. He knows that was terrible. I will never do that again. He takes that vow. But if the other counterpart is that the person says, oh, same thing as before. Oh, I didn't get caught. Actually, it's okay. And then all these other people, they don't understand. Actually, I am right, they're wrong. They should be drinking, taking intoxication and gambling and eating meat. They just don't know. So this is offensive, obviously. And we've seen all these things in the course of 50 plus years of the Krishna conscious movement. So it's not unknown, and so there are examples. There are the good examples, and there are the bad examples. And we don't hold it against the person. Prabhupada never, condemned the person. He also felt the same way as the Christian philosophy. You condemn the sin, not the sinner. You try to rectify the person by good association. And say, Prabhu, come back. Come back in our association, come chant, take prasadam, What is the difficulty, right? That's Shruti Kirti's Prabhu's book. Because Prabhupada had a very common refrain. What is the difficulty? There's no difficulty. Everything can be reconciled. You simply have to just change your outlook. And that can only be done in the association of devotees. Very rarely does a person is able to rectify himself independently. Otherwise, they would. Sometimes they languish for years. And then by good association, by entreaty, by, Prabhu, why don't you come and join us for this? We haven't seen you for a while. Don't be a stranger. No condemnation. No like, oh, you fell down, you're useless. No. Weakness of heart and aparad. The distinction must be understood. And, we're very grateful for Bhaktivinoda Thakur for making that clear. He also gave us a few other very clear definitions. It was through him that the term, two terms actually. One is called Kali Chela. Kali Chela. Who knows what the definition is?
Chela is like a servant.
Okay, he's a servant of Kali, but what's the purport is that he looks like a devotee. But he comes into devotional life to create havoc, confusion, discord. Right? So he's Kali Chela. He's an agent of Kali. And then there's, what's the other one? Dharma Dwaji. Dharma Dwaji. Who waves the flag of Dharma. Self-righteous. But he himself is not acting in accordance with the scriptures. And simply just for some prestige, he dresses like a devotee. Dharma Dwaji. Dwaji means flag. And Dharma, we know what Dharma means. A person who poses himself as a religionist for puja, pratishta, profit, distinction, and adoration. So these two things, Bhaktivinoda Thakur warned us, Kali Chela and Dharma Dwaji. And they look just like devotees. So you have to be careful. And that means we have to know the purport of the Shastras. Otherwise, that is the definition of neophyte, that he cannot defend himself, that he's easily swayed by alternate arguments. Someone can change his mind like that, boom. You see sometimes new devotees come, and all of a sudden they're hearing from someone at the Sunday feast, some alternate philosophy, and boom, what happened to Bhakta Buford? Where did he go? He's not coming anymore. We haven't seen him. And then we hear he's with this other group of Dharma Dwajis or Kali Chelas. So we have to protect ourselves and we have to protect others. And that means to be genuine. You cannot protect anyone if you yourself are not following. That's an axiomatic truth. Doesn't need any explanation. So we have to be strong. We have to be pure. We have to be faithful. Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha. This is step by step. Everything is there. We don't have to speculate. No, maybe I have to do this first. Maybe I should reverse the order. No, what is the point? Let me become intellectually convinced first before I engage in devotional service. Anyway, Prabhupada said doubts is a sign of intelligence, doubting. But to clear away those doubts, that is sincerity. Not to maintain them just as an excuse to avoid surrender. Because we know that surrender is the ultimate goal, but yes, surrender is difficult. No doubt. No doubt. Abandoning all varieties of religion and just surrendering to Krishna. What does that mean? Or religion? We're already understanding that Krishna is God, so what is the question of religion? What is he telling Arjuna? His religion is that every other attachment to some fallible deity, right, that we worship, family, country, right? We take these as religion. People take worship of the environment as religion. It is actually a religion for many people. A certain lifestyle, to become a so-called vegan, they take this as religion. If you're not a vegan, you're a demon. But we understand there's some truth in that. But it is not religion. And to think it is Maya's trap for you, constructed just for your particular mentality, so that you don't have to surrender. You do, but you think you don't. So abandon all varieties of religion. Just surrender unto me. Doesn't mean that you're not that Christianity or Islam. Those things did not even exist. What existed 5,000 years ago? What was there? Worship of the demigods, worship of the ancestors, because Krishna mentions those things. But they were all part of the so-called Vedic tradition. So Krishna was saying, yes, give up this same thing he in his original form as Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, at the time of the sacrifice to Lord Indra Puja, he told them, same thing. Don't worship, individually these demigods. What is the point? You worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will satisfy everything. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Prabhu.
How to fix ourselves in this, in the understanding that we're doing the right thing, because sometimes you go out to Washington Square Park and it's like.
Well, that's the benefit of being in the association of devotees. If you're not, someone's going to nudge you and say, Prabhu, what happened? I didn't see you in Mangalarti this morning. Yeah. I mean, in our own path, we have to have some vyavasayatmaka buddhi. Has to be that nothing, without persistence, without determination, nothing is achieved spiritually or materially. There's a nice story related to that about Bilvamangal Thakur. Also Surdas, but the story is a little bit jumbled at this point. But the basic thing is that he wanted to visit one prostitute. Everyone know this story? But there was torrential downpour. All the rivers were swollen. And in order to, and what was normally a tiny little creek, rivulet, became a raging river filled with logs and crocodiles, indistinguishable. And so he's trying to cross the river. He's stepping on the crocodiles, thinking that they're logs, just to reach the prostitute's house. And when he gets there, she's astonished. And what does she tell him? She said, if you had spent that much effort to become Krishna conscious, you'd be a pure devotee. So this is determination. They have it in the material world. They have it. It just has to be dovetailed. Prabhupada's favorite analogy in that regard. Just dovetail. Anyway, I'll think of that shloka. Yes, Majidi, you had a question.
I was just thinking about what was said earlier, and one senior devotee was talking about just like the path and staying on the path. What she said was that sometimes people don't realize that when you're first, the distance from falling away is the same when you first start as it is as you get closer to your destination. So the ditch is always
Yes.
it's always there. And if you don't wake up one day in light or falling away from Krishna consciousness, you look at us, what was I doing? What was I doing yesterday? Because yesterday reflects what you're doing today.
Yes.
So today you feel fallen, but today you're not chanting.
Yes.
Probably based on yesterday.
Yeah. So sometimes the word practice is used, which this is our devotional practice. Practice makes perfect. Your habits are what you practice. Someone says I have bad habits. No, you don't have bad habits. You have bad practice.
Also, regarding abandoning all varieties of religion and surrender to me, I've done a lot of thinking about that. I wonder, sometimes I think that in the greater context of the Bhagavad Gita, like Krishna's gone through all of these varieties of religion above, and so he's talking about different forms of dharma. And so at some point Krishna says to Arjuna, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure, that his identity as a Kshatriya, his dharma, his, what do you call it? That's his dharma. So that's being a warrior is his dharma, is his religion. And Krishna says, okay, just abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender it to me, because that's enough. And so, in the context, so I know that people use it as a means to say abandon all world religion, all other religions outside of the
Right.
But I feel like it's an instruction to Arjuna.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Krishna is telling Arjuna to abandon his Kshatriya dharma, or his religion, in his dharma.
But he doesn't tell him, well, the next instruction is, you could say, armed with knowledge, stand and fight. So he hasn't really told him to abandon his self-identification, which is leading him to confusion, that as a Kshatriya, I have a choice. I can fight or not fight. But as a devotee, I have to I have to be knowledgeable to know what is the highest goal, which is ultimately to follow Krishna's instructions. So this is something that we're all taking into consideration. Yeah, not that I've abandoned some material religion, or that Krishna is instructing us to abandon some material religion. You're correct. But that the self-identification which may be preventing us from surrendering, that should be abandoned. So yes, I'm not a Kshatriya. Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Sudra Kena Hoy, Ye Krishna Tattvavid Se Guru Hoy. I'm none of these things. Ultimately, I'm simply a servant of Krishna. And that if I understand that, I can instruct others. So he was telling Arjuna, but yet it was being relayed even in real time, right? It was live streaming. That was the first instance of live streaming. Sanjaya is showing Dhritarashtra through transcendental relay, like closed circuit television. He was able to see everything that was taking place. Everything. Live streaming. And so it wasn't just for Arjuna. It was also for Dhritarashtra. It was also for anyone who would hear Bhagavad Gita in the future, regardless of their position. And that's also the understanding. Not just this type of person or that type of person, but for all persons, for all time, for all circumstances. So that's the Gita for everyone, every human being. Mr. Natabar.
Comment on that. He's saying sarva dharma pratija, give up all dharma. So dharma means that essence of something. So who we are is like a layered thing. Like you have our body. I mean that's some of what we are, but that's very temporary. So Prabhupada's taught us, you're not your body, like because we're beyond our body. We're beyond the mind. So Atma means self, and it can refer to all these different things. So each of these different levels have different dharmas, but there's a hierarchy of dharmas. That's if you have like your in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's complaining, well, if we fight this war, we're going to kill all these guys, and then that's going to create
Varna Shankara.
Varna Shankara. It's going to the family dharma is going to get messed up. So instead of doing that, I'd rather just not fight. And then Krishna is trying to tell him that no, there's higher dharmas that take precedence over that. But ultimately, the highest dharma is because the essence of who we are, of what we are, we're a soul. We're part and parcel of Krishna. So the highest dharma is to surrender to Krishna.
And that's the essence of surrender. He tells Arjuna, Nimitta matram bhavasavisachin, just become an instrument. So an instrument doesn't have independent action. If I want to use a hammer to do the right work, I mean, of course, you can use a hammer for mischief as well. But in the service of the knowledgeable person, and in this case, of course, he's telling Arjuna, become an instrument and I will use you. So the Supreme Lord has that option to use anyone, like he's using the pure devotee to spread his message. He's empowered. But we can choose to be an instrument of Krishna by surrendering. And that surrender may not appear, directly. It's not that Krishna's going to say, you do this. But through the agency of the bona fide representative of the spiritual master, Chitte te kuriya ana kriya mane. So the words emanating from the lowest mouth, they're purifying the consciousness. Purifying the consciousness just so that we can engage in such a way that will be purified, will become instruments. The whole world becomes benefited by essentially watering the root of the tree, by serving everyone simultaneously, by this effort to please Krishna. This is a realization that we utilize occasionally, people forget, that I cannot help everybody. It's futile to think so. But yet many people do, and there are many organizations that want to save every fish in the sea and every stray dog and animal in the world. No, it can't be done. It doesn't mean we don't have compassion. But imagine if every person who had that desire to help others was Krishna conscious. Just imagine how different the world would be. If they were all learned to water the root of the tree and all joined together. Why is chanting the holy name considered to be the world religion, the Yuga Dharma? Because if everyone did that, this would be the kingdom of God. Even the Christians know that, right? That if everyone is worshiping of God, then the kingdom of God is here. Not different. Just like we know the temple is Vaikuntha. Why? Because everyone in the temple is worshiping Krishna. Because that's what goes on in Vaikuntha. Everyone is worshiping Krishna. So if there is such a place outside the temple, yes, then that is also Vaikuntha. Everyone is worshiping Krishna. Any other questions, comments? We get a chance to practice what we preach every day. Go out on the streets, distribute Prabhupada's books, try to bring as many conditioned souls as close as to Krishna as they want. No restriction. We are the original equal opportunity, because we know that no one is the body. Everyone else has some bodily conception, except for the devotees in Krishna consciousness. So we have to exercise that, and we have to demonstrate that in everything we do and say. Right? Prabhupada was saying that in that book. It says, we have a respectable position. We should never lose that. The worst thing for a company is to lose reputation. The worst thing. Immediately doomed. Your stock value becomes worthless. Loss of reputation, reputational loss. So we should always be careful that we're representing the pure devotee, we're representing the parampara, we're representing Krishna. Should never bring any criticism, unwarranted criticism. Warranted criticism may be there due to our mistakes, and we should own them and correct them. That's only proper. Any other? Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki.